What if you could detect dangerous artery blockages in your own bedroom, using things already in your home? No expensive scan, no hospital equipment, just a few simple checks that can reveal warning signs years before a heart attack or stroke happens. Today I'm going to show you simple tests used by vascular specialists. Tests that can reveal whether the arteries feeding your heart and legs may already be narrowing. Some of these signs appear in places most people never think to look. Your toenails, the temperature of your feet, a ring around your eye, a simple test with your thumbnail, and one number you can measure at home that doctors use every day. But before we start, let me tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 71 years old. She had done everything her doctor told her to do. She took her medication. She watched her diet. She went to every appointment. And yet something wasn't right. Her feet were always cold. She felt a strange tightness in her calf whenever she walked to the end of her street, and the hair on her lower legs had slowly disappeared. Her doctor told her everything looked fine. Until one afternoon when Margaret performed a simple test at home and got a number that told her something no appointment had revealed in 2 years. Today I'm going to show you exactly what she did. I'm about to show you something that might stop you cold, something you can do in your own bedroom with equipment you probably already own that gives you a number, a real number. The same number a vascular specialist uses to determine whether the arteries feeding your legs and heart are silently choking on plaque right now. And I am going to show you 8 other things you can check at home before you even get to that number. Things hiding in your toenails, in the temperature of your feet, in something that happens when you press your thumbnail for 5 seconds and let go, in a pain in your calf that you have been told is a muscle problem. These are not folk remedies. Every single one of them is documented in clinical literature and used by vascular specialists in their offices every single day. The difference is that nobody has ever sat down and explained them to you in language you can actually use at your kitchen counter at 7 a.m. in the morning. That is what this video is. But first, I need to tell you about Margaret. Because what Margaret discovered on a Tuesday afternoon sitting on the edge of her bed is the reason this video exists. Margaret was 71 years old. She lived alone in Phoenix, Arizona. She was the kind of woman who had spent 40 years taking care of everyone else. Her husband, before he passed, her 3 children, her grandchildren who came every other Sunday, and had somewhere along the way quietly stopped paying careful attention to her own body, not out of carelessness, out of the specific exhaustion that comes from decades of making sure everyone around you is fine first. She had been to her physician twice in the past year. Both times she had come away with a statin renewal and a reminder to watch her sodium. Both times she had asked if there was anything she should be watching for at home, anything she could check herself between appointments. Both times the answer had been broadly reassuring. Keep taking your medications. Come back in 6 months. You are doing fine. She was not doing fine. She had noticed things. Cold feet every evening. So cold her husband used to call them her ice blocks in the years when he was still there to feel them. A strange tightness in her left calf when she walked to the end of the block and back. A tightness that vanished the moment she stopped and stood still and returned at exactly the same point the next time she walked it. The hair on her lower shins had been thinning for 2 years. She had attributed all of it to getting older. She had not attributed any of it to her arteries. On that Tuesday afternoon, she found a video that explained what cold feet actually mean when they appear alongside missing leg hair and a calf that cramps at exactly the same distance on every walk. She sat on the edge of her bed and read the instructions for a test she had never heard of. She found her blood pressure cuff in the drawer of her nightstand. She lay flat on her back and she got a number. The number told her something her physician had not told her in 2 years of appointments. I am going to show you exactly what she did and exactly what that number means and exactly what to say in the appointment where you bring it in. But first, I need to give you everything that leads up to that number, because the number only makes sense when you understand what your body has been trying to tell you first. Before I show you the tests, I need to give you one piece of biology that makes everything else make sense. Most people picture clogged arteries the way they picture a clogged kitchen drain. Fat builds up on the inside of a pipe until the pipe narrows and eventually blocks. That picture is wrong, and it matters that it is wrong because it changes what the warning signs look like and where to find them. Arterial plaque is not a coating on the inside of the pipe. It is a living inflamed mass buried inside the wall of the artery itself. When years of high blood pressure or elevated blood sugar create microscopic tears in the inner lining of the artery, the body tries to heal the damage. It sends in a tough structural protein called fibrin to patch the tear, the same material that forms a scab on your skin. But oxidized cholesterol, calcium, and cellular debris get trapped inside that fibrin net. Over years and decades, this builds into a mound inside the arterial wall. The pipe does not get coated from the inside. The wall itself gets thicker from within, and the channel through it narrows from all sides at once. Here is the part that matters most. The danger of this plaque is rarely just its size. A blockage that is 70% of the way across the vessel might be heavily calcified and completely stable, sitting anchored to the wall like concrete, reducing blood flow, but not about to move. But a blockage that is only 30% across might have a thin, fragile cap sitting over a hot, liquid, inflamed core. If a spike in morning blood pressure tears that thin cap open, the inflammatory contents of that core spill directly into the bloodstream. The body treats this as a catastrophic injury and instantly forms a clot to seal the rupture. That clot, not the plaque itself, is what causes the heart attack or the stroke. A 30% blockage killing someone that a 70% blockage would have left alive for another decade. This is why the standard cholesterol test misses so much. It measures what is circulating in the blood. It tells you almost nothing about what is building inside the wall, and the wall is where the danger lives. Arterial plaque disease is also a whole body disease. It does not choose one artery and leave the rest alone. It affects the entire network simultaneously, and the smallest vessels always show the damage first years before the larger ones do. This is the most important sentence in this entire video because it is the reason you can find signs of arterial blockage in your feet, your eyes, your toenails, and certain other places I will get to shortly, long before anything shows up on a standard cardiac test. Think about what this means in practical terms. The arteries of the heart are 3 to 4 millimeter wide. The arteries feeding the foot are a fraction of that. The capillaries in the nail bed are invisible to the naked eye. In a plaque-building process that is happening everywhere simultaneously, the disease has to travel much less distance to block a vessel the width of a hair than it does to significantly narrow a vessel the width of a pencil lead. The foot and the eye and the nail bed are not separate systems with separate vulnerabilities. They are the most sensitive gauges in the same system. They are reporting the same information earlier and more loudly than the coronary arteries because they have less room to hide the damage before it shows up in the body's behavior. The smallest vessels in the body reveal the damage first, always, every time. Every home test I am about to show you is built on that one biological fact. 8 tests, 8 different windows into the same system, all of them available to you right now with no equipment beyond what is already in your home. Test 1. The ring in the mirror. Stand in front of your bathroom mirror in good light. Look directly at the colored part of your eye, the iris. Look at the outer edge of it, the border where it meets the white of the eye. Some of you are going to see something right now that you have never been told has a name. A ring, a thin arc or complete circle of white, light gray or faintly bluish color running around the outer rim of the iris. It might be subtle. It might be pronounced if you are over 60, and it is there. It has almost certainly been there for years. That ring is called arcuculus. It is cholesterol and lipid deposits embedded in the cornea itself, not in the bloodstream, in the tissue of the eye. When this ring appears in a person under 40, it is a serious red flag for familial cholesterol disorders. In a senior, it is more common. but when it appears alongside other vascular symptoms, when it is accompanied by cold feet and calf cramping and the other things Margaret had noticed, it signals systemic lipid dysfunction at a level the standard cholesterol panel may not be capturing. But the eyes offer something even more specific than what you can see in the mirror yourself. An optometrist using a standard instrument that shines a light through your pupil to examine the retina can see your blood vessels directly. No incision, no imaging scan, no referral. The retina at the back of the eye is the only place in the entire human body where live blood vessels are visible without cutting anything open. And the vessels the optometrist sees in your retina are a direct biological reflection of what is happening in the blood vessels of your heart and your brain simultaneously, because they are fed by the same arterial system, subject to the same plaque, and damaged in the same pattern. If your retinal vessels are narrowed, stiffened, or crossing over each other abnormally, it is not an eye problem. It is a cardiovascular reading wearing an optometry appointment as a disguise. If you have not had your retina examined in the past 2 years, book that appointment. Tell the optometrist you want them to specifically note the vascular pattern in the retinal vessels. Those 5 words will change what they look for. Leave a comment below if you have ever been told you have the ring around your iris and your physician never connected it to your cardiovascular system. I want to see how many of you have been carrying that sign without knowing what it means. Now, the eyes tell you what is circulating, but there is a test you can do in 30 seconds on your own thumbnail that tells you something the eye cannot. It measures the pressure at the absolute furthest point your blood has to reach. And the result you get is going to either reassure you or make you keep watching very carefully. Test 2, the 30-second nail test. Find the thumbnail of your dominant hand. Press the pad of your index finger firmly onto the nail bed, hard enough to turn the pink tissue underneath completely white. Hold it for a full 5 seconds. Now release it and watch. Count the seconds out loud as you watch the color come back. Under 2 seconds, the pink flushes back almost immediately. That is healthy microvascular. The tiny vessels at the very ends of your circulatory system are maintaining adequate pressure and delivering blood efficiently. 3 seconds. Borderline. Worth noting and repeating on both hands and both big toes. 4 seconds or longer. The color returning slowly, creeping back rather than flooding back. That is a sign the tiny blood vessels at your extremities are struggling. It means the arteries above are not pushing hard enough to get blood all the way to your fingertips, or that the tiniest vessels themselves are clogged, or both. This test is called the capillary refill test. It measures the absolute furthest endpoints of the circulatory system, the places the blood has to travel the longest distance to reach. If it is slow getting to your fingertip, it is slow getting to your heart muscle and your brain tissue too. Repeat this test on both thumbnails and both big toenails. Record your numbers. The toenails being further from the heart will almost always show a slightly slower refill than the thumbnails. But if the big toenails are taking 5 or 6 seconds to return to pink, the blood supply to your lower body is in serious trouble. If you know someone right now who has been told their circulation is not great, but has never been given a specific test to measure it at home, share this video with them. This test takes 30 seconds, and it gives them something real to bring to their next appointment. A share takes 10 seconds, and it might be the most useful thing that person receives all year. But here's the thing about the nail test. It tells you if the pressure is weak at the end of the line. It does not tell you where in the line the weakness is coming from. That is what the next test does. And you do not need a single piece of equipment to do it, just your fingers. And it will tell you exactly which segment of your arterial network is causing the problem. Test 3, following the map. Your circulatory system is a branching network, and you can feel it branch, not with any equipment, with your fingers. There are 5 specific points on the lower half of your body where an artery runs close enough to the skin surface that a healthy pulse is easy to feel, and an absent or diminished pulse tells you precisely where in the network a blockage is strangling the flow. Use the pads of your index and middle finger for every pulse you check. Never your thumb. The thumb has its own strong pulse that will fool you every time. First checkpoint, the groin. Press firmly and deeply into the crease where your thigh meets your pelvis. This is the femoral artery. You should feel a strong rhythmic pulse here in virtually every person regardless of arterial health, because the femoral artery is large and the blockages that affect the lower leg rarely start this high. If you cannot feel a pulse here at all, the blockage is high up in the system and you need to see a physician this week. Second checkpoint, the back of the knee. Sit on the edge of a chair and bend your knee at about 30 degrees. Press your fingers firmly into the center of the crease behind the knee. This is the popliteal artery. It is deeper than the others and requires genuine pressure to feel. A strong pulse here, alongside weak pulses below the knee, tells you exactly where the blockage begins. Third checkpoint, behind the inner ankle bone. Place your fingers just behind and below the bony prominence on the inside of your ankle. This is the posterior tibial artery. In a healthy leg, this pulse is easy to locate and strong. Fourth checkpoint, the top of the foot. Slide your fingers down from the web space between the big toe and the second toe toward the ankle. This is the dorsalis pedis artery. Some people naturally have a hard-to-find dorsalis pedis pulse even with healthy arteries. So this checkpoint is most useful in comparison to the other side. If one foot has a clear pulse here and the other does not, that asymmetry is significant. Now here is what to do with what you find. A pulse that feels weak, thready, almost like a whisper rather than a tap, especially if the pulse above it is strong, narrows the blockage to the section of artery between those two checkpoints. A pulse that disappears entirely between the knee and the ankle tells you the blockage is in the thigh or calf arteries. A pulse that feels unnaturally forceful, bounding against your fingers rather than tapping rhythmically, is not a sign of good circulation. It is the signature of a stiffened, calcified artery that has lost its natural elasticity and is transmitting the heart's pressure wave without absorbing any of it. Sit quietly for a moment. After you do this, you have just manually mapped the blood supply to your own lower body using only your fingers. Your physician has the same information available to them at every appointment. Most never check. Now take your socks off because your legs have been leaving evidence of what is happening inside the arteries for months, possibly years, and every single sign of it has been explained away as normal aging. It is not aging. I am going to show you 5 things to look for that your physician has probably never once pointed out to you, and at least one of them is almost certainly in the room with you right now. Test 4. What your legs are telling you. Strip off your socks and look at your lower legs, ankles, and feet in good light. I want you to look for 5 specific things. Temperature first. Place the back of your hand against your lower shin, then against your upper shin. Your upper shin should feel clearly warmer than the lower. Now place the back of your hand against your foot itself. Your foot should be warm, not dramatically cooler than your ankle. If your feet are consistently cold to the touch, not just cold on a winter morning, but cold every evening, regardless of how many socks you wear or how warm the room is, the arterial supply to the foot is insufficient to maintain normal tissue temperature. Cold feet as a chronic pattern are not a thermostat problem. They are an artery problem. The biology behind this is direct. The body maintains tissue temperature by delivering warm blood continuously from the core. When the arteries feeding the lower leg narrow with plaque, the volume of warm blood reaching the foot drops. The foot cools because the delivery system is failing, not because the environment is cold. When a senior adds more socks and the feet stay cold anyway, they are trying to solve an insulation problem that is actually a supply problem. The socks cannot compensate for what the artery is not delivering, and the cold foot that no amount of wool resolves is the body describing that failure in the clearest physical language available: hair. Next, look at your lower shins, your ankles, and your toes. Is there hair there? There should be. Hair follicles are among the most metabolically demanding structures in the skin. They require a rich, continuous blood supply to survive. When the arteries feeding the lower leg narrow with plaque, the hair follicles are the first structures to lose their supply. The hair stops growing. It falls out. It does not return. Hairless lower legs and feet in a senior who once had leg hair is not aging. It is arterial insufficiency slowly starving the follicles. Skin quality. Third, run your hand along your lower shin. Healthy skin has texture. Some give, some moisture. Skin that is shiny, tight, and thin. Skin that looks almost like it is stretched over the bone beneath it is skin that has been chronically deprived of the blood flow that maintains its cellular structure. The cells cannot turn over normally. The tissue thins and stiffens. It begins to resemble wax paper, and it feels like it too. Toenails fourth. Look at your toenails, specifically the big toenail. Is it thick, brittle, distorted in its shape, growing in ridges or curves rather than flat? Toenails deprived of adequate blood flow cannot produce healthy keratin. The nail matrix, the structure under the base of the nail that builds it, stops working correctly when its blood supply is choked. The result is a nail that grows wrong, thick, brittle, and strange. And that does not respond normally to antifungal treatment because the problem was never fungal in the first place. It is vascular. The physician who has been prescribing antifungal cream for your toenail for 3 years without asking why it keeps failing has not asked the right question yet. Color. Fifth, and for this, you need to lie down. Lie on your bed and elevate both legs on 2 pillows for 2 full minutes. Then look at your toes. In a healthy circulatory system, the toes stay pink regardless of elevation, because the arterial pressure is strong enough to push blood to the foot against gravity without effort. In an arterially compromised leg, the pressure is so reduced that elevating the leg, even slightly against gravity, is enough to drain the color from the toes entirely. They turn pale, ghostly white. The blood simply cannot get there against the mild resistance of elevation. Now sit up and dangle your legs over the edge of the bed. Watch what happens to the color over the next minute. In a compromised leg, the blood rushes back into desperately dilated oxygen-starved capillaries, and the feet turn a dark mottled purplish red that fades slowly over several minutes. This test has a clinical name, Berger's test. And when it is positive, when the elevation turns the feet white and the dangling turns them dark red, it is one of the most specific physical signs of significant peripheral arterial disease that exists. It is not subtle when it is present. Margaret tried this on that Tuesday afternoon and sat on the edge of her bed, watching her feet turn a color she had never seen on living skin before. She knew before she reached for the blood pressure cuff what the number was going to tell her. But the test I want you to do next does not happen lying down. It happens outside on a flat surface at your normal walking pace, and the result you get from it does something none of the previous tests can do. It gives you an exact number, a distance, a measurement of how far your arteries will let you walk before they cannot keep up with the demand. And if that distance is the same every single time you walk it, what you have is not a leg problem. It is a diagnosis. Test 5, the walking test. This is the one that requires you to go outside. It is also the most diagnostically specific test you can perform without equipment of any kind, because what it reveals is not a sign or a symptom. It is a functional measurement of how much your arterial blockage is limiting the blood supply to your leg muscles under real physical demand. The condition it detects is called claudication. It is a word most seniors have never heard, but the experience is one that many recognize immediately when it is described precisely. Claudication is not a general tiredness in the legs. It is not joint pain. It is not the heaviness of muscles that have not been exercised in a while. It is a very specific, reproducible cramping or burning pain, usually in the calf, sometimes in the thigh or buttock, that appears reliably after the same distance of walking, forces you to stop, and disappears completely after 2 to 3 minutes of standing still. Not sitting down, standing still. And then if you start walking again, it returns at exactly the same distance every single time. This predictability is the diagnosis. A muscle strain changes with rest, with stretching, with position. Joint pain varies with terrain and posture. Claudication does not vary. It is as consistent as a clock because it is caused by a fixed physical blockage in a pipe. When you walk, the leg muscles demand more oxygen than the narrowed artery can deliver. They begin to produce lactic acid from working without adequate oxygen. The lactic acid causes the cramp. When you stop walking, the muscles need less oxygen. The trickle of blood getting through the blockage is enough for rest. Margaret had been visiting the same doctor for 2 years, but the appointment that changed everything happened only after she arrived with knowledge and the right questions. She later said something that stayed with me. I finally understood what my body had been trying to tell me. That's the purpose of this video, not to make you worry, but to help you recognize signals your body may already be sending. If even one of these tests made you pause and think, it may be worth discussing with your physician, because when it comes to circulation problems, early awareness can make all the difference. And if you want to learn what steps can help protect and support your arteries naturally, make sure you subscribe.